So another brand new setup guide today for users of Retrobat front end on PC and Windows. We're looking at the Atari ST today. So this one's a little bit twiddly, but I'm going to show you how to set this up and get you running some classic ST games. So a little bit of background of Atari ST if you're too young to remember it or you don't know much about it. It released in 1985 in the UK and America, and it retailed originally with a monochrome monitor for just under $800 in the US, that is, and just under $1,000 with a color monitor. So in the background of this we had Commodore, who was working on the Amiga 1000, but at the time it was so ahead of itself, people didn't know how to develop for it. People were a bit, whoa, what's going on there? This is pretty high-tech stuff. So Atari, with their 520 model, essentially got in there first. And it kind of gained a big, strong following in the UK as well as America at the time. So obviously Commodore went on to produce the very famous Amiga 500 eventually. But nevertheless, the Atari ST carried on doing what it was doing. So after the 520 ST release, a couple of years later, Atari produced a new model, 1040 ST, released. And then we went on to subsequent systems such as the Mega series, such as the Atari STE, and even a portable ST known as the Stacy. We also went on to bigger systems, which in some ways were failures, such as the Atari Falcon, but that system in itself has got a big following nowadays. And of course, towards the end, Atari ended producing the Atari Jaguar, which I think is quite known to date that was a major failure. So what we're doing today then is looking at which files you need to run your Atari ST games through Retrobat. I'm going to show you how to load different discs for one game. Bear in mind that a lot of Atari ST games were on multiple discs, and unlike Amiga emulation where you can have WHD load games, .LHA, the Atari ST doesn't appear to have that. So I'm going to be showing you everything you need to get you started with Atari ST through Retrobat, so check this one out. Okay, so first things first, before I start today's setup guide, hit notifications, subscribe and like if you like today's guide, and also be sure to check out my long playlist for Retrobat setup guides. So we're talking about the Atari ST today. So what we're going to do first is head over to the Retrobat shortcut, as I always suggest, right click on it, open file location, and from here, just open up Bat GUI. And we're going to find system list once GUI has opened. System at the top. If you don't see this, please follow my comprehensive setup guide. There's a good chance there you don't have the correct files installed, so you might not see this, what I'm moving around just here. If you do see this, and hopefully you do, you'll find Atari ST. Now, as we can see just here, the only core to support this within Retrobat through RetroArch running in the background is Hatari. And I've actually covered Hatari as a standalone emulator a little while back, as well as covering a standalone emulator for ST known as Steam. So already we can see we've got one core here to use, and that is it. We don't have an emulator within Retrobat we can download, so you are stuck with Hatari, I'm afraid. Even if you like Steam, this is the way it is for now. If we look at extensions, we'll see different file extensions that your games need to be in. Now, after testing this for several hours today, I've noticed that the .st, .stx, and also .zip run fine. I have tested using .ipf and a couple of other file extensions, but I didn't get much success with these. So just make sure your games are in my opinion, in .st, .stx, or .zip file extension. And if they are in .zip file extension, just click inside and make sure they're actually the format of ST and STX, or either one. So that's what we need. And next thing I'm going to do is close all this down and open up Retrobat, and we're going to explore now which file it is, or rather BIOS file, you need to get your games working through Retrobat. So just open Retrobat up. Okay, so we're inside Retrobat, and what we're going to do, go to main menu, I'm pressing start on my controller, and if we select the first option, which is game settings, Right at the bottom of this list, you're going to find missing BIOS check. And this is going to tell you every BIOS file that you need for particular systems. And Atari ST is one of them. And here we go, Atari ST, the file we need is tos.img. And that stands for the operating system, or Atari, the operating system. So that's the only file we need. You can actually download a free alternative of this file, and I'll leave the link in my description for that. So now we know which file extensions you need for your games and the BIOS or TOS file you need. Let's just quit out of here. And what I'm going to do is just open up Retrobat, again, the directory that is. So right click on the shortcut, open file location. And the first folder you're likely going to see is BIOS. If you go into BIOS, the file I've got here is, as it said just a minute ago in Retrobat, tos or tos.img. If I just drag this one inside of that BIOS folder and come out of BIOS folder within the Retrobat directory, I'm next going to go down to ROMs. And under ROMs, we're obviously going to see an Atari ST folder, and here it is. So we go in there and it's empty. So I've got some games here. And what I'm going to do with this video is actually introduce you who aren't familiar with ST games and show you what it's got to offer. So a lot of these games just here are also on the Amiga. So some of these games are better, some of them not so good as the Amiga, but whatever. So as I said, these can be in .zipped file extension, and that's what these games are in. So let's look at Blood Money. If I open this one up, we can see this is a ST file type, and that's fine. That's what BatGUI recommends. And if I look at the Chaos engine, we got an ST file in there as well, and Shadow of the Beast STX file. So you also notice that there's duplicates of these games. They're not duplicates as such, they're discs 1 and 2. If we take a look at the Chaos engine from 1993, disc 1 of 2 and disc 2 of 2. And we also got Jim Power, which is one of my favourite Amiga games. 2 discs on this one as well. And some of your ST games will be a single file. So Blood Money, for example, there isn't a second disc. It's just a 1-disc game. So let's copy the games. I've got 10 of these to show you into that ROMs folder in Retrobat. So everything's set up now. We've got the TOS file in place. That's the operating system file. And we've got 10 of the games I'm going to showcase to you. So everything's in place. Let's go back inside Retrobat. Okay, so we can now see Atari ST, and if we go inside here, here's all our games, and we got a nice little monochrome, I think that's a monochrome Atari screen just there, with the 520 in the background. Let's scrape some artwork, so main menu, scraper, and just scrape now, and give that a little while. Okay, so scrape and finish, update game list to apply changes, so I'm going to press my start button to enter the main menu, game settings, and just simply press on update game list and yes. And here we go. So here's our games. Now what I'm going to do to begin with is open up a game which requires 2 discs. So for this, I'm going to be going to the Chaos engine. Now, once the white screen appears, what I'm going to do is just press enter on my keyboard, or you can also press start on your controller, and this brings up the Hatari main menu. Now, this game in particular requires 2 discs inserted into Hatari. So to do this, floppy disks, and what you need to do to make life a lot easier is where it says default floppy images directory, you need to point this part to where your Retrobat ROMs Atari ST folder is located. So just simply go to Browse, and then at the top just here, where I've got my cursor, you can go back and go back as far as you can go. If you've got your games on the external hard drive, you'll likely find it here somewhere. You've also got CWD, and you can then see the different folders on your computer. So now I'm out of where I had them stored. What I'm going to do is just show you how I've done this to locate my Retrobat ROMs Atari ST directory. So as you can see now, by pressing that little tab at the top just here, I'm now inside of my Retrobat directory on my computer. So, and we can see ROMs just here, which is of course a part of the Retrobat directory. If I just go into that ROMs folder, and just use the cursor just to scroll down a touch and just select Atari ST. And as you can see, here's my games. So I'm going to press OK on this, and that's all good. Now, we need disk 2 inserted for this particular game. So what I'm going to do is where it says drive B, I'm going to go to browse. And from here, I can then select disk 2. So Chaos Engine disk 2, as we can see just here, Chaos Engine disk 2, just select that. And tap a couple of times on that file. So at the top under file, you can see it's now saying disk 2, and press OK on this. If we go back to main menu, what we need to do next is save config, because we need to reset this emulator for it to boot up with both disks inserted. So save config. And if you go to hatari.cfg, make sure that's selected. And you can see this at the top just there under file. If I select this NVRAM, it will select to that. But we need this one, hatari.cfg. Press OK. So that's saved. And what I'm going to do next then is press on reset machine and press OK. And if I go back to Hatari main menu, now everything's saved. If I go to floppy disks and press on that, we can see it's now got Chaos Engine disk 2 is where was disk 1 inserted. So everything's pretty much good to go on that. So back to main menu and press OK. So I just press space just to bypass a couple of screens just there. And we've also got disk 2 inserted, as we know. So right about now in the loading process of this game, it's going to be asking us for a disk 2. But you won't see this come up because I've already inserted it and it's going to detect it automatically. So as we can see, always working well with that. Now, let me just remind you that if you close this down to open up a new game, you've still got disk 2 inserted. So let's just open up the Chaos engine again and eject disk 2. And I'll show you what I mean in a sec. So just enter the Atari main menu, floppy disks, and this time I'm going to just eject, say, both of these games. May as well do it whilst we're here. So eject both of your games and then back to main menu and always make sure to save. So save configuration, and I always select Hatari CFG. If I press OK, and OK, again, everything is then wiped from the floppy disk drives. I've tried other ways of doing this, but this seems to be the only way to do this. So also to make a note, whilst we're in the Hatari main menu, if we go to memory, we can even increase the size of the ST RAM. So for example, normally this would have been at 512 kilobyte, but I've actually boosted mine to 2 meg. And you'll find if you boost up games to say 14 meg, some of your games might not look right. So just be aware of that. But the option is here. If you need more memory on certain games you're going to be playing, then obviously do as the games ask for. Say a game wants 4 meg of RAM, then just select 4 meg of RAM. But always make sure you're saving this as you go along. So, for example, if I just selected 2 meg of ST RAM, I'll just go to save and Hatari CFG and then OK and save it. So if we go back to main menu and OK, so what I'm going to do next is show you some video settings. So same as every system pretty much on Retrobat. If we go to view options, I'm pressing select. Advanced system options. Now, normally you'll see emulators at the top with RetroArch cores and maybe a standalone emulator which you downloaded through Retrobat. Like I said, we've literally just got Hatari on Retrobat. So we still got video settings for this. So shader set, you can use whatever you want here. Curvature is a very good one if you want an old CRT image, which is pretty good. Personally, I like this one in enhanced. I'm going to put enhanced on for this. Decorations, as you noticed just now, we've got some decorations for the Atari ST computer. I'm going to disable this because I'm not too keen on these, but if you want to apply another decoration, then that's fine. Just remember, if you want to set an aspect ratio to stretch for 16 by 9, if you're planning on to use a decoration, then by stretching or going to 16 by 9, most of your gameplay image is going to be taken away. So if you do set a decoration, make sure aspect ratio is on 4 by 3. I'm going to go to none. And here we go, game aspect ratio. I'm going to put this on custom. Integer scaling, I'm going to put this one on. It reduces the full size as such, but it compresses, condenses almost, and gives us a bit more of a tidy picture so it's not so pixelated. Vertical sync, put to yes, that eliminates any screen tear. And just down a touch, we've got visual rendering. Again, if you want to take away pixelation and make your games look like they're a bit more modern than what they actually are, just make sure this one's on and go back. So I'm going to start showing you now what the ST has got to offer. So I'd imagine a lot of you are familiar with Shadow of the Beast Cell Amiga. I'm going to show you this on the ST. So open up disk 1. As we can see, this is 2 disks required. So straight into the Hatari main menu. Now Shadow of the Beast, it's got 2 disks. So if we go up to floppy disks, now always ensure when you finish with a game, eject everything, back to main menu, and then save your configuration. Otherwise, your disk 2 is always going to stay in drive B, and that's going to get very irritating. So just be aware that literally everything you're doing on Hatari, save everything. So we've just loaded up Shadow the Beast, and in a minute, this is going to ask us for side 2 or disk 2. So we're going to wait for this to prompt us. So if we go back to main menu and OK. So here's our prompt. Please insert Beast Disk 2. So if I go to Hatari main menu, floppy disks. Now I have found that putting some games into drive B and going to browse for it just won't load it. So what I'm going to do if this happens is actually use drive A, eject it, browse, and I'm going to put in disk 2. So here's disk 2, and just press on this a couple of times just to ensure that's inserted, and then go to OK, back to main menu, and like I say, just seriously get in the habit of saving configurations with Hatari. Things can get very irritating very quickly. So press OK, fire, and here we go, we're in. So obviously, this is personally, I wouldn't say this was a single patch on the Commodore Amiga version of Shadow of the Peace by far. I think this is it's not as great, but I also understand that there's a lot of nostalgia for the Atari ST, and I can't really criticize it too much because, like I say, the Atari ST was known for its MIDI and music creation through Cubase. So the Atari ST, just like the Amiga, has got advantages. And now it's asking us to insert disk one again. So to simplify this, I'm going to just go into my Hatari main menu, floppy disks, and I'm not going to use Drive B or anything like that for this particular game. Like I said, I've had issues using Drive B, but as we can see from the Chaos engine, it utilized Drive A and B fine. So what I'm going to do is asking for disk one, so I'm going to go to eject, browse, and then obviously select disk one. And if I just make sure that's selected, press OK, back to main menu and save, Hatari CFG, always do that. And we're going to press OK and press fire. And there you go. As you can see, it's now used disk one and it's taken us back to the end or game over screen. So next thing I'm going to do is show you a bit of Rodland. So Rodland is a very cool arcade game. So it was very popular. It was ported to a lot of different micros of the day, including the ZX Spectrum and the C64. So let's check out Rodland. Now you notice this has only got one disc. So this one's going to be pretty straightforward. And should your games boot up into this screen, then this is the operating system of Atari ST. And all we need to do from here is just double left click on the rodland.prg, and that's going to boot us straight into the game. So as we see there, Rodland is, in my opinion, a lot better than the Amiga version. I think it looks nicer for starters, whereas Shadow of the Beast clearly didn't look as good as the Amiga version, but that's debatable, and that's not the point of this video today. So next up, we got R-Type 2. And again, we got another .prg to open, so just double left click on this one, and that's going to boot us straight in. And just to bypass screens, just remember to press space on your keyboard or open up your virtual keyboard and navigate to the space symbol. Now, if you find your controller doesn't work within your games, just go to the Atari main menu again. If you go to joysticks, by default, this one is put to ST joystick 0. Some games on the ST would have required a different port, just like a lot of microcomputers did back in the day. So we're going to select another port. We're going to use ST joystick 1. Let's try this. Back to main menu. And just save that. Maybe I'm going a bit overboard with saving, but I just find it's for the best. So as you can see, our Type 2, it does struggle to run on that, but having said that, the Commodore Amiga version is pretty much the same. And just to make it clear, if your previous game was just one disc, if you're going to start a new game using one disc, like I'm about to with the New Zealand story, then you don't need to go into the Hatari menu to mess around with discs. So let's just open up New Zealand story, and I'm sure everyone knows this game. It was a big game in its day. Absolute classic stuff. And to be fair, I don't think I've actually played a bad port of New Zealand story. So next up, we got Lotus eSpirit Turbo Challenge. And if you was around in the, say, late 80s, early 90s, you could probably remember how amazing this game looked in the day. So here we go. There we go. Who needs a new Forza game coming out when we've all got Lotusy Spirit Turbo Challenge? Really awesome stuff. Okay, so the next game I'm going to show you is Jim Power. Now, Jim Power is one of my favorites on the Amiga. As we can see, this has got two disc images. So let's just open up the first disc. Okay, so it's not going to ask for disc 2, just like the Amiga version didn't ask for disc 2 at this point. But just remember, if you go into the Atari menu and go to floppy disk, just for an easy life, just eject drive A and then replace it with disk 2 in drive A. Otherwise, you could be just wasting your time going to drive B and browsing for disk 2, and it's not going to work. So, just for easier life, just continue to use drive A and just remember to eject. Next up, this one needs no introduction during this era. This is Gods, and of course, this is on two discs. So I know this much better through the Amiga version.
Into the wonderful
Okay, so please insert disk 2. So I'm going to go back to Atari menu, floppy disks, eject from drive A, browse, and from here I got disk 2 of 2. So just ensure again you double click that and this will see it's now changed to disk 2 of 2. Press OK, back to main menu, and you might not be so obsessive with saving, but yeah, I'm going to just continue to do so. So press OK. And next up, everyone's likely heard of Turrican 2, so let's boot this up. So that's it for today's Atari ST and Retrobat setup guide. Like I said at the start of the video, it was a little bit twiddly, but persevere with it, and seriously from my own experience, continue to use drive A just for an easier life rather than switching to drive B to put your disk 2s into or whatever. It's just much easier that way by using one drive, as you can see in this video. So if you're new to my channel and you like what you see today, hit notifications, subscribe and like, and also join me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. And right now I'm asking for donations. I'm looking to expand my channel to cater for portable devices, so I can do setup guides similar like this one today. But until next time, stay retro.